Well, a year ago, not really a year ago, it was more like a few months ago, a couple months, but last year, 2023, we began a series, a teaching series from the Gospel of Luke. We've been working through verse by verse, passage by passage, through this incredible account of the life of Jesus as recorded by Luke. And like I've shared before, if you give any of us as pastors, if you give us just free rein, we tend to kind of circle around a few different topics that we're very comfortable and passionate about. But what happens, and part of the reason that we like to hear, we like to preach through books, is because it keeps me from preaching my four favorite passages. What happens each week is we go, okay, here's the next passage. What is God saying to us through this passage, through these words? And this week it made me think of a lifetime ago when I was a basketball coach. Now, growing up in Indiana, I played basketball because that was, what you did. Like, kind of out here, like wrestling and Pittsburgh Steelers football. By the way, a win yesterday. I mean, come on, over the Ravens. Like, that was good, right? Let's go. That was awesome. But in Indiana, like, basketball is that thing. It's why, if you've ever seen the movie Hoosiers, like, that was literally my growing up. It really mattered that much. In fact, there was a point in time where they wanted to do classes in basketball, like the bigger schools all play each other, the little schools play each other. The only way that got passed in Indiana was they promised after they had each of the class winners, they would still do a playoff between those classes so we'd have one state champion in basketball. Like, legit. Basketball matters in India. And growing up, I played basketball. Some of you look at me and go, yeah, you don't look like a basketball player. I said I played. That's past tense. I've long since not played anymore. But then I got the chance to coach basketball. And so having coached a few different teams, one of the things that I found very interesting, and maybe you've coached a youth sport or something like that, or I'm guessing this is probably for teachers too, although I've never taught a class in school. That first practice really matters. Like it's when the tone gets set for the whole season. I mean, you're not really installing the offense. You're not giving the intricacies of how we're going to play offense or defense, but rather you're setting the tone. I mean, picture it if you will, like you walk in and you're the coach and you're in front of a group of players and you look at them and go, okay, guys, it's the first practice. We're just our goal for this year is to tie our shoes correctly. It's a pretty low bar. Versus if you're the coach and you walk in and say, hey guys, great, this exciting year, I'm so excited, we're going to win the championship. Those two first statements matter a lot, right? And so some of you have been there. Maybe you've played sports or you've coached or something like that, or you've taught, and you know how this works. Like, that first time that you meet with that group, that team, that class, whatever it is, it really matters. It sets the tone. It lets everybody know this is where we're going as a team. If you remember, when we last left Jesus and his disciples, we left them along the Sea of Galilee. It was that moment when Peter had been in his boat and he was fishing. And Jesus calls him and says, come on, you're going to follow me. And that's where Luke chapter 5 begins, is with Peter in a boat. And Jesus looks at him and says, come on, I want you to follow after me. I want you to do what I do. I want you to see the world the way I see the world. I want you to interact with the world the way I interact with the world. And then this week, we kind of get the first practice. We have now Jesus with a few disciples, and then Luke turns the page and goes, okay, this is the very first thing you need to know about what Jesus was teaching his followers. If you have your Bibles, I invite you to open up to Luke chapter 5. Luke chapter 5, I want to just prep you for this in advance. This is Jesus' first practice with the team. I mean, this right here, my friends, this is big stuff. We don't want to miss a moment of this, and so I want you to be on the edge of your seat and ready to go, because this is Jesus' first interaction with the team. This is the first practice. He's setting them up to win the Super Bowl, or whatever they had back then. My friends, the calendar has changed pages. My jokes have not gotten better, and they will not. I am at the top of my game right now when it comes to jokes. Laugh at what you get, or don't. Just pity me. Pity may be the best way we have going here. So, Luke chapter 5, verse 12 is where we're going to start. Luke chapter 5, verse 12. Luke records it this way. While Jesus was in one of the towns, a man came along who was covered in leprosy. And when he saw Jesus, he fell with his face to the ground and begged him, "Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean." Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. "I am willing," he said, "be clean." And immediately the leprosy left him. Then Jesus ordered him, "Don't tell anyone, but go, show yourself to the priest and offer the sacrifice that Moses commanded for your cleansing as a testimony to them." Yet news about him spread all the more, so that the crowds of people came to hear him and to be healed of their sicknesses. But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. I know. Isn't that the most inspiring locker room talk you have ever heard in your life? It kind of falls flat, doesn't it? I mean, this is the first practice. It's supposed to be the moment where we all get excited, where we're all rah, ready to go. And then Jesus just delivers kind of a flop. I had this realization years ago in ministry, and it goes like this. Whenever I think Jesus gets it wrong, or whenever I think Jesus delivers a flop, it's probably not him. It's probably me. Whenever Jesus does something I don't expect, whenever I think Jesus gets it really, really wrong, it's probably my expectation that's wrong. Jesus normally is right in the middle of where he's supposed to be. So if I think this is a flop, it's probably me, not him. Does that make sense? I want to take a minute, if we could, together to kind of walk through this passage a little bit, because when we actually just slow down and look at it, some interesting things pop up here that may or may not be helpful for us. The first is this. Jesus starts off, and if you kind of picture it in your mind, Jesus is walking along. Behind him are a bunch of his disciples, and, well, a bunch being like, 4. And they're following along behind him, and the idea is everything Jesus does, they're supposed to do. Everything Jesus says, they're supposed to understand so that they can then share his teaching with the rest of the world. That's the idea. What the rabbi's goal was in that day was to, he had this teaching, it's called a yoke. He had this yoke, which was the sum of his teachings. And what's supposed to happen is the rabbi is supposed to teach the disciples so that later on, he can actually send his disciples out and they can teach other people. It's like, it's kind of like, retweeting before there was retweeting, right? It's kind of like sharing a Facebook post before there was Facebook to post on, right? This is the idea. And so if you can imagine, like, Jesus is walking and he has these disciples and they are like tuned in. Everything he does, they're like laser focused on. They want to know exactly what it is that he's doing so that they can do that too. They want to know exactly what he's saying and what he's thinking. And so I'm sure, have you ever been in class? And when you're in class, the teacher walks in for the first day and writes their name on the board or something like that. And there's always that one person in class that goes, ooh, 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 ooh. Is that going to be on the quiz tomorrow? Some of you laughed, and some of you went, I don't know if I've ever had anyone in class like that. If you're that second person, probably you. right? Here's how this works, right? There's always that person. So back then, you know what's happening is there's someone, one of those disciples is walking along that has a notepad out that's like everything, right? And their thought is, okay, how can we get what Jesus is doing, how can we share this with the most people possible? And then this dude walks up, and he has leprosy. And he looks at Jesus and goes, if you are willing, you can make me clean. Oh, this is going to be good. What's he going to do? And Jesus just looks at him and goes, okay, yeah, be clean, and touches him. We don't touch unclean people. That's like Judaism 101. You don't touch unclean people. It's also interesting, too, that what this guy asks for is he asks to be clean. He doesn't ask to be healed. You catch that? Like being healed is one thing. Being clean is a different thing. Healed has to do with the illness being taken away, or the illness, the restoration of health. That's healing. In fact, we know that Luke knows that word because he uses it a little later. This guy doesn't ask for that. This guy asked about being clean. Being clean has to do not with it has to do with community and being able to engage in community. Community with each other and community with God. That's cleanliness. It's a different thing. So this guy is suffering with this disease that keeps him away from community. And he's looking at Jesus. He's like, I don't care about feeling healthy. I don't care about my temperature. I don't care about anything. I just want to be able to engage with community again. Because his whole life was going around and yelling, I'm unclean, stay away from me. He said, I just want to be clean. I want to be able to touch people again. I want to be able to go to church. I want to be able to interact with people. I don't want people looking at me and staying away. I want people to be close. This is what he asks for. This is just a short aside, but have you ever noticed that sometimes we jump to the conclusion of what people want before we actually listen to what they want? You ever notice that? Maybe you've had this happen to you, where something's wrong in life and you go to a friend and you say, oh, here's what's going on. And you're like halfway through the first 3 words of what's wrong. And they go, oh, here's what you really need to do. What you really need to do is dump that bozo because he doesn't. You're like, that wasn't it at all. I was talking about my car won't start. You ever been there? By the way, just like before, if you've never been there, you might be the person on the other side of that. In fact, I think all of us at times are that person on the other side of it. Just a short aside, if nothing else about this passage speaks to you, maybe that should. As Christians, as people, we get way too interested in solving other people's problems than hearing what it is they really want. And I think we get a lot farther if we listen to what they want before we'd offer the good advice that we have to give. Okay, promotion all over. Now, back to Jesus. So Jesus is there, he touches the guy, leprosy's gone, right? And you can sit there and you know there's always one in the crowd. These disciples are going, that was awesome. And one of them is halfway through calling 60 Minutes. Because, that's how you get the story out there. There's already 3 Facebook posts being posted. They're on Twitter. They're on TikTok. They're ready to go. They're like, how do we get this message out? And one of them is like, okay. And he's got 60 Minutes on the phone. He's like, look, Peter's going to need some really good makeup because that dude is ugly. But we need some really good makeup. But bring the cameras out because our rabbi just healed someone of leprosy. And then Jesus looks at this guy, let's call him Fred. Jesus looks at Fred and goes, hey, don't tell anyone. Which really quickly ends the 60 Minutes phone call. He tells Fred, don't tell anybody. Just go to the temple and let them look at you and offer the sacrifice so that you can be back into community. What you want is community, right? Go do that. Go to the temple, get your passport stamped so you can be back as a part of community. Go and do that. Which if you're one of the disciples, you go, dude, that was awesome. I mean, like, Jesus, you're really bad at PR. That would have blown up in a good way. Like, that's getting retweets and Facebook shares and everything. Everyone's liking that one. In fact, they're not liking it. They're loving it. It's awesome. Like, that would be so cool. We could tell everybody about that. And Jesus goes, nah, it's okay. Just shh. No, just go, Fred. Nevertheless, more and more and more people start coming to Jesus, and he keeps healing them. Which again is a great moment until you realize that Luke says that Jesus keeps going to lonely places to pray. Which again, if you think about it, is some really, really, really bad PR. I mean, if you can put hospitals out of business, that's how you get billboards, right? If everybody who comes to you, if you just send them to 60 Minutes or Dateline or 20, pick your, it doesn't matter to me. Like, pick which news magazine you want, right? But if you just let all those people, if you let the reporters come around, if you let the TV cameras around, if you let all that happen, like, man, the news spreads really, really, really fast. And so part of you go, why in the world does Jesus keep telling people, shh? And why does he keep going to lonely places? By definition, nobody else is there. So it makes it a lonely place. Like, what is it? What is his game? Why does he keep trying? And the poor disciples are sitting back over here taking notes going like, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense because we could get so much more traction. We could get so much more social media likes. We get so much more attention. We could do all this stuff better. I mean, like, Jesus, you could be preaching to 5,000 hungry people. It'd be awesome. Why not? You remember earlier when I said whenever there's a difference between what Jesus does and what I think should happen, I know who's wrong. It's probably me. Do you ever think maybe that Jesus couldn't have cared less about his Facebook followers? I don't mean he doesn't care about you. I mean, do you think that Jesus maybe couldn't care less about who has the most Facebook followers? You think maybe Jesus doesn't really care if he is Time Person's Person of the Year? You think Jesus doesn't really care if he's the most TikToked person ever? I don't know what the actual verbiage there is. You think maybe Jesus isn't into a popularity contest? You think maybe what Jesus cares about more is the Freds of the world, them being made whole? I think what Jesus might care about more is lives being transformed. See, the more I think about it, the more I think this is like the perfect locker room speech. This is the perfect story. I think Jesus knew exactly what he was doing. I think Luke knew exactly what he was writing. Jesus, we're going to be with Jesus following this around. We're going to follow Jesus' teaching and Jesus' miracles and Jesus' life. We're going to follow this guy for months and months and months. If you don't like the Gospel of Luke, I apologize. But we're going to be here a while. Intentionally. But as we follow Jesus around, one of the things we're going to see over and over and over and over and over and over and over again is Jesus doesn't need likes and retweets. Jesus doesn't need social media followers. Jesus doesn't need validation from the size of the crowd. Jesus doesn't need that. What Jesus is completely focused on is life transformation in the lives of those he comes in contact with. And my friends, those are two very, 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 very different things. And if I can be honest with you, at times that's a little convicting. Because a part of us as humans, right, that we like that. Can I just admit that? I do. I like it when, we have one of our sermon videos up online and someone's like, "Oh, that was a great sermon, Pastor." I'm like, "Oh, that's good. I like it. It makes me feel special." I get it, right? And there's this part of us, this human part of us that likes that. And there's nothing wrong with that feeling. It's just we have to continue to remind ourselves that's not the reason that we exist. Did you know that? If I can burst some bubbles for a second, we don't exist to be the most Facebook popular church in Greene County. We're glad if you want to like our pages. That's fine. We're not opposed to it. It's just not, at the end of the day, it's never a conversation in our staff meeting. We never sit down and go, "How many likes did that get?" It's just not a conversation. It's not we don't exist to be the most popular church. That's not why we exist. Now, do we want people to know that we exist so they can come and meet Jesus? Absolutely we do. But the goal is people meeting Jesus. The goal is people being transformed, not that everyone likes us. And those are miles and miles and miles apart. And every once in a while, my friends, it's good for us to be reminded of why we exist. We exist because we believe that Jesus is the one who heals. We believe that Jesus is the one who invites us into community. We believe that Jesus is the one who takes what is broken and puts it back together. We exist because we believe that there is a God who loves us enough, who came close to us and said, "I can fix what you have broken." We exist because we believe that Jesus and his death and his resurrection is transformative for every single thing that's wrong with this world. We exist because we believe that Jesus makes a difference. I'm going to try that again because there wasn't an amen there. I feel like there probably should have been. We exist because we believe that Jesus makes a difference. We believe because more than anything else, more than Facebook likes and more than retweets and more than popularity, we believe that the difference that Christ can make in someone's life is a big enough deal that we would give up everything for someone's life to be encountered by Christ. We believe that what we're supposed to do is follow the example of Christ and go out and touch lives and empty ourselves. Empty ourselves. So that people's lives can be transformed by who Christ is. You notice the model here, what's happening, right? People are coming to Jesus, they're being healed, and he's like, "Guys, I need 5 minutes to recharge." So he goes where nobody else is. He prays, he lets God fill him back up, and then he goes out and begins to transform lives again. That's the model. Go out, let God work through us to transform lives. Be refilled, go out, let God transform us to come in and be refilled, go out, just put it on repeat over and over and over again. God worked through us to transform lives. That's what matters. More than anything else, that's what matters. That's why we do this. It's not because I have an innate need for people to like me more than anybody else. It's not because we need to be popular. It's because we believe at the core of our being that God is the one who changes lives. And if Jesus, our Messiah and our Rabbi, set us this model, then we can do no less. This is how it works, my friends. And this is what we're about. We want to be that church that follows this model. Where more than anything else, lives are transformed. That's what we want people to know. We want people to know that we are serious about being a place where Jesus moves and where lives are transformed. Every single life is transformed when they meet Jesus. We want to be the place where all the Freds of the world come. Not so we can talk about them, but so that their lives can be transformed by who Christ is. I want to ask you just to think about that for a second. And just honestly, ask that question just to you. Do I care more about lives being transformed? Or do I care more about people thinking really nice, wonderful things about me? Do I care more about lives being changed, or do I care more about shares and tweets and retweets and all those things? Do I care more about God moving through me, or do I care more about people noticing me? At the end of the day, my friends, one of those will change the world. And the other one will leave us feeling empty. My friends, we want to be the place where all the poor and all the powerless and all the lost and all the lonely, and where every tongue will come to Christ and know that Christ is the one that we worship. In a little bit, we're going to take communion together a little bit. And maybe there's no better way for us to step into this new year than to take a minute to just be reminded of what matters most. If you think about it for a second, maybe this is the best way for us to have our first locker room talk of the year. So guys, this is what matters most. What matters most is that we are transformed by Christ and are agents of transformation by Christ. This mattered so much to Jesus that he literally took his life and laid it down for us. There are millions of ways to become more popular. There are millions of ways that Jesus could have had more people cheer for him. But Jesus knew what mattered most is he would lay down his life for us.